Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School. What I want to discuss this morning is the measurement marks on the back of my axe handle. I get lots of questions about those measurement marks, from why are they there to how did you put them there. So I figured I'd cover that a little bit in this video real quick for you today. And Bernard Mason's book on woodsmanship talks about these measurement marks on the axe handle as being a handy ruler in the woods. And he doesn't go into a whole lot of detail in this book other than to say that you don't want these things to be burned into your axe handle really deep, because you don't want to create friction. And in his book, his model shows them on the side of the axe handle. I have always put mine right on the spine of the axe handle because it gives it a better feel in my hand, and I don't have any ridges or bumps on the side of this thing whatsoever. And it also makes it easier for me to use it as a measuring device in the woods, depending on what I'm doing with it. So I can give you a few tips and tricks from the experience of using this technique on probably 20 or 30 axes over the last several years. One of the things that I do with mine is I usually use equal increments of some kind on here to the half foot. So if I've got like a 22-inch handle or a 23-inch handle on my axe up to the head, I usually stop at 18 inches on the axe. If I've got a full-size axe, I'll put a 2-foot ruler on here. So this one has a longer mark at the 1-foot mark, and I always start at the back of the handle here for my measuring stick, and then go 1 inch up, and when I get to a foot, I make a longer mark. So you can see this one has an 18-inch ruler on it. It's very easy to discern that, because I know that this is 1 foot and this is obviously half of this distance. So I know that's an 18-inch ruler on the back of this axe handle. Now, what can I use this for in the woods? What are the applications and reasons for putting that on there? Well, first of all, it just makes your axe more multifunctional. It allows you to measure the diameter of a tree that you're going to cut or that you're going to process, so that you know if it's going to be what you want. It allows you to equally measure pieces and component parts of things that you're building in the woods. It allows you to use that axe as a device for determining the height of a tree that you're preparing to fell, so that you know where that tree is going to fall when it hits the ground. You know where the canopy is going to hit, so you don't have anything in the way and you have a good safe zone there. So there's lots and lots of just little things that you can use this for, to include a navigation device if you're using self-mapping or the Paul method of navigation, which I learned about from Jim Kane several years ago. He introduced me to the book on Paul navigation, and I thought it was a great thing, because a lot of the older authors have talked about self-navigation, self-mapping, but it's never really been explained really easily in some of the older texts. And the book that I got from Jim Kane showed how to do it in a very simplistic fashion, and I have taken from that and simplified it down a little bit more for teaching purposes, and it works really well. But having a measuring device like this that you can put on the ground to do your ground map off of your log sheet is very convenient. So those are just a few reasons why you want that measurement mark on the back of your axe. Now let's talk about putting them on the axe, because I have a new axe here that is the new Holtz-Brooks AKKA, and it's basically a carpenter style axe, almost like the Forest Fine. When I say almost like the Forest Fine, it's really close. The Wetterling's Forest Fine is no longer made. Since Grantsford Brooks bought Wetterling's, they've decided to discontinue that axe, but here they are side by side, this one being the Wetterling's Forest Fine, this one being the AKKA. The one thing that I like about the AKKA better than the Forest Fine is the actual cheeks on the blade themselves. This one is much thinner here than this one is. So this one's going to be a good splitter, but that's really not what I'm looking for with this axe. I'm looking for something that will obviously split kindling, but an axe this size is more of a crafting tool. So I want those deep, thin cheeks like that, so that I can get fine veneers and things like that when I'm cutting and chopping. I used this axe while I was in Sweden and did some testing with it in the Swedish forest when I was testing the new American felling axe. It's got my signature on it from Holtz-Brooks, and I was really impressed with the way this axe manipulated wood. So I've got one here that I'm going to put measurement marks on now, because this is going to be my new go-to packed style axe. So let's talk about these sheaths for a minute, because they've done a couple things with these sheaths one of them on my suggestion was to get rid of any buckles or snaps and just have a drawstring cordage on there. That way it's easy to replace, there's no muss, no fuss. I've never been a big fan of snaps. I've never broken a snap on a Grantsford Brooks axe. I've never broken the snap on a Wetterling's axe. But I have had times where I have damaged the strap itself, and because I have a snap on the cover, it renders that cover useless without modification. I had to knock the snap out, punch a hole in both sides, and put cordage in it anyway. So why not just start off with that and be done with it? They've got a really nice cover on these axes that covers the whole head up here, so there's no damage if you drop it like this or anything like that to the area inside the eye. You're not going to chip it out or anything like that. You're not going to dent up or ding this thing if you drop it or bang it on something, because it's completely covered, and I like that a lot. It also has a nice thick welt in it, and it has really nice rivets in it as well. So this is a heavy duty sheath on this new Holtzbrook axe. So let's cut to the chase here, and let's get to putting our measurement marks on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my propane forge, and you could use anything that will heat metal will work. A piece of coat hanger wire would work fine for this with just a gas torch that you buy from any hardware store. What I generally do is I take a piece of flat stock and I use the corner of that flat stock, just like if I were using it to strike a ferrocerium rod with. I use that edged corner to cut those lines in after I heat this up in the forge. So let me get this axe viced up and marked in, and we'll go from there. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a pencil line on here where I want each one of these marks. I'm also going to decide, I've only got about 21 inches of handle here, so this will be an 18-inch measurement. And I'm going to go from the very front and just set that ruler on the vise, and I'm just going to take my pencil and stay right on the spine and scribe a line on here. And when I get to the 1 foot mark, and if you wanted to, you could put half-inch increments in here as well, but I don't find that necessary. Get that thing as close to the handle as you can get it as you're going, so that you know all these marks are right on the money. So my 12-inch mark is right here, and I'm going to take that one and I'm going to make it a little longer on purpose, okay? And I want to make sure that all these marks are really right on the back of that handle, and we're not going to burn these in real deep, remember. So we want to stay right on the hump line of this axe, okay? And now we've got 6 more marks that we're going to make on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm not overly critical with this. I try to make sure it's, you know, as close as I can get it. But if it is, you know, a 32nd of an inch off, I'm not going to be using this axe for anything that critical. And if I'm using this as a measuring device and I'm measuring 6 inches on here in the same place every time, everything's going to be the same length if I'm making multiples of something. So that's important to remember too. Don't get too over anal about it. Just make sure that they're all right on the back of the axe handle. Just like this. Remember where your 1 foot mark is. Make it a little bit longer so you remember where it's at. And then heat your metal up and go. Now I've got this thing red hot. And all you basically have to do is touch these points to get that mark on there. Make sure you've got a good hold on this thing so it doesn't move on you, because you do have to put a little pressure on it. And once it stops burning clean, just heat it right back up again. So there's my first 6 marks. Just kind of look at it, make sure they're about all the same size. This is my 1 foot mark, so I know I want it to be just a little bit longer, just like that, than the rest. And I can go right back to burning those in again. And you can see it's not burning in as quick now, so I need to reheat. Once I get that done, I generally come in here with a sanding block of some kind and just kind of knock the edges off of that thing, just like that. Make sure it's nice and smooth. I generally knock all this writing off the side of it as well while I'm at it, for the most part. Like that. And then I take a rag with oil on it and oil the whole thing up really good. And this is just a mineral oil here. Make sure that I get the eye real well while I'm doing this. I come in here, pull this cover off, soak the eye real good. Like that. Wipe my blade down. And now, this baby's ready to be used. No muss, no fuss. Okay folks, that was just a real quick and dirty video on how to put these axe marks, these inch marks on your axe handle, how I go about doing it, how I clean it up after the fact, and why I do it to begin with. I appreciate your views, I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks guys.